Hello and welcome to another edition of ReAct Radio on Resound Radio with me, James Beecher. This week we're going to look at registering to vote. Last week we did a show on remembering, looking at May Day, International Workers' Day, but we're coming up to the date that is the deadline to register to vote, May 22nd. Today's Thursday the 18th. We're joined by Natasha, who's going to tell us a bit about Register to Vote Stroud and some other things that she's involved in.
We all know there's this snap election and there's a big drive to get people, particularly the young demographic, registered to vote. Alongside campaigning for whatever party you want to campaign for, I'm not here to tell you who to vote for as part of Register to Vote Stroud, but it's just about political engagement for the young and trying to get across why it is important to vote and listen to their answers.
Right, so do you want to just tell me a little bit about what Register to Vote in Stroud has been doing?
So mostly there have been evening events. The Albert, we've had Stroud Brewery where they did a hustings and all 4 candidates turned up. We've got hustings tonight at the George, the Little George, and then tomorrow a really big event, SBA tomorrow, for a lot of music, a lot of fun, and a free pint if you register to vote. Because we're really running out of time now, and I'm quite keen on getting people registered well before the cut-off date in case the website goes down. So when we went into Archway School, for example, and many of the kids said, yeah, they're interested and engaged and want to do something, but didn't know where to get the information. And when asked, well, how do you want this information? Evening and music events did come up, so we thought, okay, well, let's do that. And very kindly got the support of Stroud Brewery with their newly branded Ex-Appeal beer. And so we were able to give a free beer to everybody who registered, which has definitely made a difference. But it also gave us the opportunity to talk to people at the same time. So it wasn't just about a political drive or trying to tell people who to vote for. It was just an opportunity to talk and empower. And
you went into Archway?
Archway School, yeah. So a couple of us went in, Year 13 assembly, just to talk. We took in voter registration forms and gave them, access to the website and so on. But actually it was just an opportunity to ask a group of Year 13s, are they registered? Can they be registered? Will they register? And if not, why?
Well, maybe we're going to talk a little bit about kind of why we think it's important to vote and the kind of the processes of how easy it can be to register to vote and to get to the polling station on June the 8th.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why we set up Register to Vote Stroud because of that is that there wasn't enough information, and particularly for young people, and there are lots of non-voters in the country as well. I mean, we're doing this completely off our own backs because we all just think it's really important, and we've all got kids that we want to grow up knowing about this stuff. So find us on Facebook. We've got loads of events coming up until the 20th, which is pretty much the cut-off date to go online to register.
We're here at Archway, and 4 people have agreed to have a little chat with us. So, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Dylan Kentish, 17, 18 next week, so I would be able to vote. Yeah.
And are you planning to vote at the moment?
No.
And are you registered?
No.
Okay. So, is there a reason why you're not registered or not planning to vote?
Mainly because in terms of like the parties and like how it like sort of like what happens, I have no idea. So voting just wouldn't really work because I don't know what I'm voting for, sort of thing.
Okay. Do you know any more about it locally compared to nationally?
No.
And with registering, before today, did you know anything about?
I guess there would just be like an online thing, but I hadn't ever looked.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm Susanna Baxendale and I'm 18 years old.
And are you planning to vote?
Yes, I'm planning to vote in the general election and in this county election.
Yeah, which is today.
Yeah.
And why? Is there a particular reason why you've registered and you're planning to vote?
I've always been very politically involved. Both my parents are on the town council and district council, and I just know that when you actually work together as a team and vote, you can make big differences in the community and nationally as well.
Okay, but that's partly because you've had kind of direct experience of that through your parents, yeah? So you would have talked to them about it?
Yeah, we have a lot of political discussions about it.
Okay.
I'm Joey Fisher, I'm 18.
Okay, and are you planning to vote or registered?
I've registered, but I'm not too sure whether I'm going to vote or not.
Okay, and have you been registered for the vote today, the county?
No.
I'm Megan Kirk, I'm 17 years old.
Okay, and are you registered or planning to vote?
I'm not, I don't think I'm planning to vote. I don't even think I have enough standing of what it involves. So obviously one vote can make a difference, and I don't really want to vote if that's going to make a difference. I don't know what I'm voting for.
So you don't want to make a mistake?
Yeah.
You don't want to vote for the wrong person?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's quite interesting. That's come up a few times, and even for you, who says you've got some experience of it, yours is quite direct from your parents. So even for you, it'd be quite interesting to hear where else you get political information from. So particularly for those of you who don't think you've got the information, where do you get any information at all about the election? Do you see any news?
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was like one today.
Right.
No.
But you know about the one that's coming, the general election?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Where would you have heard about that from?
I see it on social media.
Yeah.
It's the only way I found out.
On the news in the morning.
And what kind of thing would you see on social media? Like a news story or
Yeah,
someone saying...
sort of like news stories.
Yeah, not kind of a campaigner saying vote for this person or one of the parties saying...
It's normally just some sort of news
Yeah.
website, like a link to the website sort of thing.
Okay.
It's normally just that.
All right. Would you have been at all interested in that? Would you have followed the link?
I would have just scrolled past.
You'd have just seen
I think
that.
I might have as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, I've been getting lots of leaflets through the postbox, and I've had lots of people coming and campaigning as well. And also online, I'm subscribed to lots of different political parties, so I see all of their news feed, and I also watch the news every night, so I get a lot of my political information from there.
Okay.
Usually through like Facebook or something, you see like videos, pros and cons of that, and you see it for each different one. So it's kind of useful, but most of the time I don't really know what they're on about, so it's not useful to me.
You see like a Facebook video or something or a YouTube thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you say you don't think they're useful to you, so is that because you think that the stuff they're talking about isn't really relevant to you, or is it just that it's like complicated and...
Yeah, it's just really complex in the way that they're putting it. Yeah, for me, I'm 18 and I would have thought I would know by now half of what they mean, but I don't.
Sure.
So.
Okay. And have any of you had any kind of formal politics? Have any of you studied politics or done any stuff about politics in like a general lesson?
No, so I think it would be useful for schools to maybe teach a bit of politics, because like we're 17, 18 years old and we have no idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, and it's extremely important, it changes our lives. So like, I think it'd be really, really useful if we were taught some of these things in school.
Okay. And you mentioned about having canvassers come to your house. Have any of you had leaflets through your door, had people come and knock, even if you haven't spoken to them?
I don't think so.
I think I might think my mum's put some in the bin.
Yeah.
And what did you make of the reaction that you got?
In all honesty, I was a little bit worried about going in because, I know what teenagers are like, and I was worried it was going to be an absolute quiet room and would fall on deaf ears, but we got a really, really engaged crowd, and that's something that we need to think about a lot with regards to how we perceive young people in our country as being apathetic, or they don't really care, or they're too busy partying, or these kind of ideas that keep getting rolled out every time there's an election. It's not true. Young people are engaged, but we don't have a climate for political literacy, and they don't know where to get hold of that information.
Yeah, and one of the things that one of the students at Archway said when we were asking about where they got political information from or what they thought when they saw it was something about not even having the kind of basic concepts to understand what was being talked about, something like that.
Yeah, and one girl who said I was really impressed with her, and she said, I have registered to vote, and my vote is really important, but I'm scared to make the wrong decision, and that my vote, because it's so important, will have a negative effect on the country. But that is not a young person who's apathetic. That's someone who truly understands how important it is, but doesn't know what to do with her power, because it is a powerful thing.
Yeah. So in that situation, what types of things do you think would help? What will give people the tools that they need to be able to...
I mean, this is for me it's a long-term issue. So, for example, I was involved in founding Momentum Kids, and although in the press that got sidetracked during Jeremy Corbyn's election campaign, the real basis of it was to provide a space for marginalised communities to be involved in politics. Momentum Kids was about parents and carers and people in education who actually, you know, at the time, being a single mum and being on benefits and working around the kids, and then the expectation of going to a political meeting or to a demonstration was just ridiculous. I didn't even have the resources to get to London for a demonstration. So then then there's a lot of people, if I'm like in that situation and I come from a political background, there must be hundreds of thousands of others. So Momentum Kids was very much about finding that space of empowerment and finding a space within the political community where we can actually come together and not just have one particular demographic who could go out and, you know, I'm sorry to say, but in that situation, generally within families, it's usually the mum who stays at home and the dad that goes to the demonstration. Or if you're a single mum like me, we just don't go because we can't afford it.
Sure.
So it's kind of like starting right back and then going back even further and providing political spaces for children to talk about things that affect them in a way that is, you know, curious and compassionate and creative, not about telling them what they should think. And that's something that we don't do in schools. So it's a difficult question to answer because there's so much that fundamentally needs to change. But it's important for me that engagement continues. I don't want to start something and then just walk away from it.
Yeah, you were talking about, like, I mean, in the last show we were talking to Hannah about union membership and similarly to youth engagement with voting, engagement with unions is much lower than it used to be, membership and stuff. So we're talking about starting right at the basics of what these organisations do and stuff. And trying to, like you just said, I mean, they acknowledge that there are barriers that people face to getting involved, and it's not really good enough just to say, you should do this. Yeah. Why aren't you doing this?
Why aren't you voting? Let's just say there's a big class issue there. Because we are, you know, I was coming at it from as a single mum and on benefits and going through those kind of struggles and assuming that everybody else was doing the same. And there's a class issue there, particularly with the trade union movement. So if we've got a massive working class population who don't have access to political engagement, that's a huge problem. And would probably be the reason why we have a Tory government.
I mean, that's maybe a good point to look at some of the data about the impact that this stuff would make. So, the Intergenerational Foundation, I've not heard of them before, but if you want to look them up and look up this report I'm going to talk about, their website is very easy. It's if.org.uk, if.org.uk. So they put out a report saying that between 2015 and 2017, there are 1.25 million new voters, i.e. people who've turned 18 during that period. And that means that there are 43 seats, marginal seats around the country where the number of those new voters, people who've turned 18, is larger than the majority of the current candidate. And of those 43, the 15 that have got the, where the difference is greatest, when there's most people who are new voters and the smallest majority, 11 of those are Conservative marginals and 4 are Labour. And in the same report, this is going to tend to get a bit confusing for people, but if you look at the number of people who are 18 to 34, different question, there are 39 marginals, so a similar number of seats basically, where 10% of the people who are aged 18 to 34 is a bigger number of people than the majority actually is. Just 10% of that. So, it's not like you're saying if 100% of those people voted, you're saying if 10% more of those people voted, that would be more than the majority currently is.
It's quite close.
So we're only talking about 40 seats, and there's 650 in House of Commons. So that's not like there's a huge number of places, but it's interesting that there are places where that factor of new voters, so it's only been 2 years since the last election, so there's not that many.
It is that, and it's also quite, in the snap election it's difficult to really look at polls and statistics because you can't really predict so well when you've only got 6 weeks. it changes really fast. It can change every couple of days, but it's also getting the message out there very quickly about how powerful those votes are, whether they're only 43 seats or
wherever.
It's still a really powerful voice.
Yeah.
And that's where I've tried to reiterate when talking to people, or to young people, about, they don't see the point because nothing ever changes. We do actually have, in this election, a possibility for real change that we haven't seen before, certainly in my generation. We haven't really had this opportunity. So it's kind of like getting that across. Whoever they're voting for, there are actually, for the first time in many, many years, two very different parties.
I mean, just looking at the moment, just to give an example of one of these seats, so Croydon Central is currently a Conservative held seat. The majority there is under 500, so very tight, to a Labour candidate, I think, challenger. The number of people who've turned 18 since 2015 and who will be eligible to vote this time around is over 3,500, so that's more than 7 times the number. Obviously, not all of those people necessarily register to vote. Of those that register, not necessarily all of them will vote, and those that do vote, not all of them will vote Labour or any party that isn't Conservative. But
they're more likely to vote Labour or Green.
Yeah, what we tend to know about the polling is that, yes, so-called progressive parties tend to do better on the young. I think 18-24 is, I think, off the top of my head, the Labour polling is about that point, 40%, it's always 20%, 18-24, something like that.
And that doesn't really surprise me very much. Just in the short space of time in Archway school that we talked about earlier, when we asked, what kind of issues are affecting you, what kind of changes you want to see in the world, and everyone went really quiet. And we prompted with, well, aren't you all off to university next year? Is there anything bothering you? And the whole room put their hand up. And in fact, one girl even said, I'm not going to university next year because I can't afford it. So I can understand why they would choose to vote Labour, because at the moment it's the only party that's offering to change that.
And it's not just fees, right? I mean, things that are creating problems for people in terms of economics, housing costs, or
landlords' agents' fees.
Yeah. Just their incomes at work. Those things are disproportionately affecting younger people. Rents are going to feel a lot higher if you're fresh out of uni working in a new job. In a city centre, there are going to be people around who've got jobs they've had for a while, essentially slightly higher wages, but you're going to be right at that. The minimum wage for younger people is set at a lower rate than it is for people who are older. So, there's lots of reasons why you might not be surprised that younger people will be a bit different.
And I think the only issue, and that comes back to what we were discussing about continuous political engagement, not just in the run-up to the election, is that what tends to happen with young voters who are unsure is they'll vote who their parents vote for.
Yes.
And if they don't register to vote at 18, they're very unlikely to vote until much later on anyway. So, it's getting people engaged young and continuing it. So I'm running these campaigns, which is great, and I'm really pleased with them, but then the deadline finishes, and then what? We mobilise people to come to events, to have these political discussions at hustings, talking to young people. I don't want to lose that energy. Political engagement has to continue. Otherwise, we only ever talk about it in the run-up to an election. It's too late. It needs to be intrinsic to school life, to family life, to communities, in order for the democracy and electoral system to be sustainable. In the run-up to an election, there are things that I experience a lot more racism. And that's just walking around town. And then suddenly it just all dies down again. Not that I want to experience that all the time, but it's the idea that people just suddenly, all the kind of election issues that are brought up, and that can be really quite intense, and in a very short space of time, rather than us discussing it all the time and having large chunks of time to change people's minds, particularly around racism.
Sure. I mean, another reason that I've heard people say to me that they don't vote or they have general distrust or antipathy to politicians is that you only see them around election times, right? They'll come and knock on your door when they want to vote, but you're lucky if you get one who comes around and knocks on your door the rest of the time or shows any interest in you during those gaps.
And then it becomes like a sales pitch, doesn't it? And it's hard to how do you put your name behind that? How do you put across to someone you know is selling you something? That's not how government should be run. It's not a sales pitch. These are actually our lives. There's a lot more at stake.
In the recent county council elections, turnout was generally quite low. It tends to be lower than in general elections. So in general elections, you get 60, 70%, 80% sometimes. The referendum, I think, was 70, 80%.
It's amazing how many people didn't even know there was a local election.
Yeah, lots of people telling me they didn't know it was happening, they didn't know who their candidates were, lots of stuff like that. So, for instance, by district, if we total up the turnout, we get quite a range. In Cheltenham, 39.1%. In the Cotswold district, 40.1%. In the Tewkesbury area, 34.2%. In the Forest of Dean, 33.8%. So you're getting down to kind of a third of people in the electorate who are voting. Gloucester is the lowest district in Gloucestershire. Most urban, probably the poorest, 33.3%. Probably the most racially diverse as well, the least white area. So, more marginalised communities, lower turnout. You can see it just within Gloucestershire. The interesting one is Stroud. So Stroud has the highest percentage turnout of any of the districts, 40.9%. That's still below 50%, which is quite interesting. But it's also an increase, quite a substantial increase on 2013, when turnout in Stroud was more like the others, this time around 34.6%, third of voters. If we look, just to give a couple of examples of how that pattern is replicated at the level of the individual seats, the individual wards that councils get elected from. So Leckhampton, which is a ward in Cheltenham, I think is represented by Lib Dem. They're the only seat in the county, I think, where they got 50% or more turnout. They got just over 50%. Cinderford in the Forest of Dean and Coney Hill in Gloucester both got around 25% turnout. 25.7 in Cinderford, 25.3 in Coney Hill. Now, I mean, I don't know how much people who are listening know those kind of areas, but it's fairly basic to explain it. Leckhampton is a more prosperous area in Cheltenham. Cinderford and Coney Hill, some of the most deprived bits of the county. I mean, 25%, that's low. That means the winning candidate is going to end up on 10-15% of the potential electorate. Yeah. Which I think raises some questions about how democratically legitimate it is. No one's asking those questions, but
there should be, and we should be questioning it, because we need to be demanding electoral reform, because this isn't working.
Yeah.
The government or the people in power are not educating the population enough to be empowered enough to make those decisions, and that really is the key issue. It's not about young people not voting or young people not thinking that they have a voice, or those things they're not true. But the bigger question for me anyway is that why are we not, as a government, the political powers, actually doing something to educate people? Because if they're not doing it, I want to know why. Because that's a real issue. And if they're not doing it, then they have a reason why they're not doing it, and I don't trust them. I want to challenge that.
If turnout's low and that's producing certain types of governments, it's not too weird to say, well, maybe those governments are quite happy with
exactly. They're very happy with the turnout being low because they continue to keep their power.
Sure.
There's no incentive for them, which is why you can see with the register to vote drives, there are a lot of more progressive left-leaning parties who are pushing it. You don't see very many Tory registered to vote campaigns.
So the British Social Attitudes Survey is a good place to go for survey data, because they survey a lot of people and they ask the same questions consistently, so you can kind of rely on the data quite well. So they've got data on a question which is an option about your view of voting, and one of the answers is it's not really worth voting. And in 1991, of people who were aged 17 to 34, so that's young people basically, 10% of them about said it's not really worth voting. By 2008, that percentage was over 30% in the same demographic, 17 to 34-year-olds. And it's improved a little bit recently, so their data, the latest data is 2013, and they say it's down to around 20% of voters, but that's obviously still double the number of 1991. There's data across the EU, and that says that the UK has both the lowest turnout by young voters in the original 15 countries of the EU. The House of Commons Library says that younger people are less likely to be registered, which obviously is what you've been tackling. And that's particularly kind of been worsened since in 2014 there was a bit of legislation called the individual electoral registration thing, which meant that people were no longer registered with their parents, or they were still living with them, they had to individually register, and thousands of people got knocked off the electoral roll as a result. In terms of turnout, which is something that people talk about a lot, so in 1997 apparently 18 to 24 turnout was 60%, which was considerably lower than for what was then the highest group, which was 55 to 64s, who turned out at 85% level. But then since then, youth turnout has been much lower, and turnout has increased among the 65 group particularly. So you get, in 2005, the worst year for 18 to 24s, 40% turnout. In 2015, the Ipsos Mori data says that it was youth turnout 18 to 24 was 43%. And then there's other studies that say it was just under 60, but that's still obviously considerably lower than the 80% that the 65 pluses have. And also, turnout among people who are 25 to 34 is now pretty much comparably as low as for 18 to 24. There's loads of data out there. People kind of, their intuition that young people don't turn out and vote is true, although I think those numbers are kind of, they're not appalling. You know, some people go around acting as if, you know, it's like no one moves under 30 votes. And we're still talking, you know, somewhere between 40 and 60% of registered voters.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the statistics aside is to actually look at the other cultural issues around there. A lot of the, you know, I have had young people, as we're doing registered to vote campaign, who said, I don't see the point because nothing ever changes. And as much as that's frustrating as an older person and as someone who's been involved in politics, I can completely see it from their point of view. I've been in that position myself where, you know, I'm going to say it out loud now, where I decided that I wasn't going to vote because I don't see the point. And I probably fell into that demographic at the time too. And I look back now and I think what a shame, because those are quite crucial elections. But, you know, they don't see a real change because we don't have a democratic system that truly reflects everybody's interest. So when they go to vote, and even if their party gets in, it's still not going to reflect their community and their views. So I can see where they're coming from. We also don't have, you know, particularly with the statistics with the EU, we don't have the same culture for young people being involved in politics, even, let's say, in France, where, you know, when young people go to strike and students strike in France, everything shuts down. It's not just a couple of demonstrators outside a building. The whole university shuts down. They've got a real tradition for it. And we tend not to have that here anymore. We did when we had a strong trade union movement where young people would have been politicised through their parents and through the trade union, or they would have had political parents. So we're kind of lacking a whole huge section of the population there, actually.
Yeah.
I'm John Morgan. I manage the Little George in Stroud.
And you've got an event, a hustings, happening in the Little George.
Yes, we have. Yes, so we've got the four out of the 5 main political candidates for Stroud. We've got David Drew, Neil Carmichael, Sarah London, and Max Wilkinson. Unfortunately, we can get in contact with the candidate.
You've encouraged particularly young people to come to the event.
Yes, yeah. Well, being a very young staff myself, being the oldest at 23. we appreciate kind of the importance it is for young people to vote. So what we did, we got in contact with the local sixth forms and SGS College, and phoned them all up, sent some emails around to promote the event and explain to them the importance, why they should get involved in politics and why voting and everything else around it, they should be paying attention to.
You've had quite a good response from the colleges, at least.
We've had a fantastic post from both colleges and actually Archway School. They were very, very supportive. They made the best effort to make it. They tried to include it in their political classes, and as well they just sent mass emails. And what was it? The Stroud High said they were actually going to get their sixth form together and actually have a conversation about it.
Right.
So
okay.
I'm looking forward to it. The general consensus for a lot of people my age is just we're bored of it. We're fed up. There's been a lot more unrest over the past few years than there has been any other time in recent.
You would have been 13 at the time of the financial crisis.
Yes.
13, 14.
And at that point, 13, 14, I would have been completely oblivious.
Yeah, but I mean that's maybe the earliest. That's the earliest anyone is going to get even vaguely aware of politics happening, right?
That's it.
So since you've had any opportunity to be aware of it,
yeah,
we've been in an era of crisis, either economic, political, or social.
That's it. I think for people my age, growing up in that situation, you do end up becoming very numb to it. Myself, I wasn't overly involved in politics until I went to university, and even then, about halfway through that is when I started getting properly involved. Because at the end of the day, every time you looked at the media, social media, the news, whatever, there was just some big crisis, or scandal, or something, and it's very, very wearing.
If you're talking about the things in young people's everyday lives that annoy them, that are not about what's on the telly, but like their housing situation or their work situation, types of things you're involved in, do you think that people get angry or annoyed about them in a way that they would want things to change in terms of how society's run, or how politics is organised? Does that counterbalance the being bored with politics as it's presented at all?
Definitely, I think that there are more and more problems facing young people. In terms of getting on the housing. Now, we are a rent generation. We are renting. We can't afford housing, and a lot of people are getting frustrated. I think there is a big call for change, and certainly the people I'm involved with now, they have an awareness of how that change can happen. But a lot of young people, because they've been neglecting it, they are aware they can change it, but the steps they have to take, they're not quite sure necessarily not how to get there, but kind of they don't realise the degree of impact small things like this can make.
For a lot of young people, their recent experience will be something like the Lib Dems, right? And I'm interested in whether that affects their perception not only of the Lib Dems, but of other political parties that make promises. Whether they can believe anyone who offers them something.
You mean the Lib Dems who offered to get rid of tuition fees and went back on it?
Exactly. So that doesn't just affect perceptions of the Lib Dems. That might make you believe that any politician is offering you something in an election which they think will get you to vote for them, but then when they get in...
I can also understand it with... I sometimes question the democratic process here myself and wonder how much impact and change we actually end up having. I do understand this election is different, which is why I'm being extra active, but there's a much larger question around democracy as a whole and how effective we are really being. So when someone turns around to me and says, I'm not voting because I don't see the point, it's hard. There's a part of me that actually thinks, I get that. Because, we're not seeing the changes that are promised. And that's not just a one-off for the Lib Dems, that's regularly, in my voting history from turning 18 to however old I'm not going to say now, that is a continuous issue.
I think the other thing is that there's this. I've heard various people say you must vote because that's your chance to make your voice heard.
Well, people died for you to have that vote, James.
I think the one about the voice, it's like it makes out that it's the only time, which actually, so that's intended as like an empowering thing. You can have your say, you can get an opportunity to have an influence. But instead it's actually quite disempowering, because it says this is your only chance, and you do this little tick in the box, and it might not actually affect the outcome, depending on where you live and who everyone else votes for. But at the same time, kind of making out that if you sign a petition, or you go out in the streets, or you organise in your workplace to challenge your wages, or you end up going on strike, it kind of makes out that those aren't ways of having your voice heard, which actually, not only are they really important ways, they might be more practically useful to you in some circumstances.
And they can have huge impact, particularly if you're challenging issues within your workplace, which is what the trade union movement is essentially about. The whole country has been shut down before because people challenged and won rights in the workplace. And that was done not polling stations, that was done continuously for years with people hitting the streets and striking.
Sure, you just talked about people dying for the right to vote. To get the right to vote, they didn't pursue a strategy based on other people voting. They pursued a strategy based on protests, hunger strikes, smashing windows, throwing yourself in front of a horse. They used just about every tactic you could think of to win that. Obviously, the other side of that is that people have died for lots of things. People died for workers' rights. There were campaigns that were similarly difficult struggles that involved people being killed. In last show, we were talking about May Day, and the 8-hour day, which is associated with these, that day being set up as a holiday to commemorate people who were executed for their part in that struggle. So, people have died for all sorts of things. Okay, so the question that, what are your first memories or the first sort of things that you got involved with work, can you remember?
My first memory of politics would be my first memory, probably. My dad's a trade unionist and my mum also was quite political. So despite the fact that we had absolutely no money, my upbringing was demonstrations, organising, workers' marches. That was how I grew up. That was the community I grew up with. So in that sense, I'm quite lucky because I have the kind of educated political awareness that a lot of the people I went to school with, for example, wouldn't have got at all. And we did actually see that in Archway school as well. The children who had political parents were much more aware than the ones without. So it does tend to help. But having said that, when I hit my teens and early 20s, I completely walked away from it. I really had enough. I didn't feel like it was doing enough and really having enough change. And I came back to it mostly as a parent because of education. And it's a shame I had to wait until then to get back into it. But really, every single decision we make is political. From the moment anyone wakes up till they go to sleep, their decisions are political choices. It's whether you choose to see them as political or not. And then whether you choose to engage with it and do something to change it. And taking that next step. But it would definitely be being a parent again. And obviously, being a parent, you want to see change because, it's a bit of a cliche, but they are. And I want to try and do something now so that it can change for them later on. I don't know what else. I've done a Momentum hit, and I got involved in Momentum and Momentum Kids and the World Transform Festival. And I think the energy around that was something I could really put myself behind because they're talking about political change through kind of galvanising from a grassroots level, which was something that I knew of because I experienced through the trade union movement with my dad. So it's something I can understand, and it's something that is accessible. It's about politics being accessible. And for a long time, I didn't feel it was. It was, it was too class orientated. You had to be educated. You had to be middle class to understand even the big words behind it, which, in all honesty, even I have problems with. So how do I then communicate that to anybody I meet? And I think that's what has really started to change now. And their events are cultural, not just political, which I think is really important. So we're talking about music as well as speakers and art. So it's activists with a really broad stroke. Not just talking about people who are doing degrees in politics or economics. It's it's everybody. That I find quite exciting.
Great, thanks for coming, Natasha.
Thank you.
Join us at an unspecified date in the future when I manage to get around to making another radio show. The intention is to do them weekly. We'll try and do that ahead of the election, but there's a lot going on.
Election night special, I think.
Election night special, yeah, maybe. Thanks for listening.